So, James Gunn, director of Guardians of the Galaxy, and now the Kevin Feige of DC, has recently announced some new DC films. And I don't want to be shown up. Give me a break, I'm a kid on YouTube with an ego. And also, I think I've been waiting too long and I've got too many films lined up. So, Phases 3 and 4 of the Danimation fanverse. In case you don't know, Phase 1 and 2 have already happened. Phase 1 was from Friday the 13th up until Freddy vs. Jason vs. Michael. Now, Phase 2 had a bit of a story behind it. Originally, it was going to be from Alien, which was, the film after Freddy vs. Jason vs. Michael. So, Phase 2 starts with Alien. It was meant to end with Freddy vs. Pinhead. That didn't end up happening, because, phone broke and all that. And so it ended up ending with the Slender Man sequel. Freddy vs. Pinhead will still happen, but, blah blah. So Phase 3 started with Dracula, and currently now we're in Phase 3. So, what's lined up for Phase 3, and also Phase 4? Right, let's get into this. This is what's going on in the Danimation fanverse, Phases 3 and 4. By the way, Left Forgotten news won't be included in this video. I know you're excited for it, but I'll talk about Left Forgotten in another video, okay? So to start off this announcements, we've got 2 new werewolf movies. We're starting off with The Wolfman, and obviously with, I want to finish the Universal Monsters. So we're going to start off with The Wolfman, which, similar to Dracula and Frankenstein, will be a period film. This will take place around the time that the Wolfman remake took place. I don't really remember what time it was. Was it Victorian time? Around the 1800s. That's when this movie will take place. Apart from that, I can't really tell you much about it. It will basically be what you expect, a werewolf running around Victorian England. So, hope you enjoy it. So, as a bit of its own movie, and a bit of a spiritual sequel to The Wolfman, we've got American Werewolf in London. Nothing much to say that hasn't already been said for The Wolfman, it's a werewolf movie in London. This time it will take place in the 80s, so in a bit more of a familiar time, but yeah, that's all I can really say about this. This is more just about revealing the titles that we're doing, and, also, I might have some plot details to work out. It's just, for Wolfman and American Werewolf, really, all I've come up with is the time period. So, yeah, there we have it. American Werewolf in London. Next Universal Monster, we've got The Mummy. Again, not much to say. It'll take place in the desert and all that. And, it's The Mummy. It'll have a combination of the 1932 and the 1999 movie. So, yeah. Like I said, don't expect plot details for all of these. Only expect a few for some of them. Then we've got the Frankenstein sequel, The Bride of Frankenstein. Again, that's all I can say. That this will be a direct sequel to where the original Frankenstein that I did left off. Taking place 20 years after Frankenstein's monster was created. And no spoilers, sorry. Bit of a surprising one, I know, but London After Midnight. Now, I got a bit of a story about this movie. If you haven't heard of it, this is probably why. This was originally like a Lon Chaney movie, so this was a classic silent horror movie. In 1960, the film vault burned down, with the last remaining copy of this movie. So now this movie is impossible to watch. I want to adapt this into the fanverse, because scripts and still pictures still exist of this movie, and we do have some plot details. So, I'm going to take as much of that as I can, treat this movie with so much respect, and adapt it into the fanverse, and make this movie the best possible way I can make it. So I do have, some plot details. This will be for both my version that's coming out, as well as the original London After Midnight. So basically, it was about a detective who dresses up as a vampire to catch the killers. Sounds like Batman, I know, but it's a legit horror movie, and trust me, when you see it, you'll get it. Yikes, I've got some explaining to do. When I said Silent Hill will probably be out the same time as Left Forgotten, I was stupid and was wrong. I have no idea when Silent Hill is coming out, but I do have some plot details. Of course, it will take place in Silent Hill, and of course, it's based on Silent Hill 2, so Pyramid Head will be the main villain. Any other monsters? No promises. There might be, but there might not be. This will be a more personal story between the protagonist of the movie, James Sunderland, versus his own personal demon, Pyramid Head. I'm honestly, myself, I'm really excited for this movie. And I'm really hoping to get it out for Phase 3. So, hope you're excited for Silent Hill. Candyman. You know, it's just coming out, okay? You know the story of Candyman by now. You say his name in the mirror 5 times, he shows up and he kills you. Make a movie out of that. So that's what I'm going to do. Candyman, it's just going to be a standalone movie. Standalone story. Maybe he'll appear in a crossover. I don't know. I just really want to make this. The Fly. A classic. And yes, I'm not basing this on the Jeff Goldblum version. I'm basing it on the 1950s original. Scientist tries to invent a teleporter. Fly gets in, he gets his DNA mixed up, and becomes a fly monster. And then, well, guess you'll just have to wait for the movie to come out. But yeah, The Fly is a movie I've really wanted to make for a long time. Mainly because it's a classic. It's one of the first, really good horror movies in color. So yeah, The Fly. Now we're getting into some movies that are actually important to the lore. So first off, we've got The Headless Horseman, which is, I've said this in Expanding the Universe, but Headless Horseman is one of the first monsters to appear. And not so because of the Headless Horseman, but this movie is important because it's going to introduce a character who I think you're familiar with and is important to the lore. Of course, he'll have his own movie, but then his first appearance will be in The Headless Horseman, Van Helsing. You knew he was coming. If we were doing the Universal Monsters, I had to do Van Helsing. So yeah, the fanverse, it's going to be getting a more Monster Hunter character, because I'm just going to say it, the fanverse really has no heroes. It has a lot of villains, but it's got no heroes. It only has survivors and people who are willing to try to stop them. But there's no heroes. At the very most, we have a Monster Hunter. Van Helsing, he'll have his own movie, Dracula, Frankenstein, and a couple of other monsters. Possibly Van Helsing. Actually, of course, Van Helsing will be in it, sorry. Possibly the Invisible Man. Even Hannibal Lecter might show up. But, yeah. Van Helsing. 2 movies with him in, his own and The Headless Horseman. I've actually got some plot details for this one. Plague of the Zombies. It'll basically just be another zombie apocalypse movie, but it takes place after Left Forgotten, after all of this. This will take place in the 2030s, or possibly even 2040s, we don't know. But it'll take place in the future, and it'll basically be just a ruined future overrun by zombies, and just be a survival movie. Basically, Plague of the Zombies is the bad ending of the Danimation fanverse. Doesn't mean it is the end, though. Because, you know me, I've always got something up my sleeve. But yeah, the Plague of the Zombies is basically the bad version of the way that the fanverse will end. So the fanverse will have a couple timelines. And if I can, I'm hoping to end Phase 3 with Plague of the Zombies. But watch, if Plague of the Zombies is the next movie to come out, that doesn't mean that Phase 3 is just gonna end. I'm saying I'm hoping, not that I will. But yeah. Plague of the Zombies. It'll basically just be zombies have taken over the world and just, surviving and stuff. And I'm going to call it the Plague timeline for this. The Plague timeline will continue into the next movie, which is another Friday the 13th. This one will be called Old Man Jason. It'll take place from like Marvel's like Old Man Logan comics and of course the Logan movie and a lot of Friday the 13th. And obviously this takes place in the Plague timeline. So this will basically Jason in a zombie apocalypse. Like, what would he do? Would he be on the zombies' side? Would he be surviving against them? Would he align himself with anyone? Really, I don't know. It's just Jason in a zombie apocalypse. I felt like I couldn't pass that one up. So, Plague of the Zombies and Old Man Jason will be the movies in the Plague timeline. Right, let's take a little break from timelines for this next one, and then we'll go back to it for the next one after that. Okay, but yeah, next one is Old Man Jason. Spawn. I've already announced it, so you know it's coming, but I've got a couple plot details without giving away too much. So Spawn, we already know it takes place after Left Forgotten. Basically, it's the Left Forgotten aftermath. What is the... we know that Left Forgotten takes place in New York, but Spawn will also take place in New York. I racked my brain for years. Well, not years, but it feels like years. Like months trying to figure it out, and then we finally figured it out. Left Forgotten is before Spawn. And Spawn, there's just too many characters for it to only be movies. Spawn, I believe, will have its own mini-series. Or just be a series. Not a series as big as Left Forgotten, but definitely like a mini-series that put together will make up a whole movie. So yeah, Spawn. Now let's get back to the timeline stuff. Now, Terminator. Now because Terminator deals with time travel, I thought I'd have to do Plague of the Zombies first, just so the Terminator can have an established goal. So the T-800 goes back in time, basically to a couple of days before the whole whatever it is with like Sarah or John Connor. For some reason they're involved in whatever kickstarts the plague. So basically, the Terminator's motivation is he's trying to undo the plague timeline by creating what I will call the Terminated timeline. Get it? So basically I'm calling it that because the original timeline, the plague timeline, has been terminated. Basically, all of the movies will still be canon. Spawn, Left Forgotten, all the Friday the 13th, all the Halloweens, all of that will still be canon in both the Terminated and the Plague timeline. The only bits of the timeline that will be taken out are Plague of the Zombies and Old Man Jason. But I thought I still want to make those two movies so we can have an established timeline so it can go one of two ways. So we have just basically a full timeline. We have, like, if the Terminator didn't go back in time, then zombies would overrun the world. If the Terminator did go back in time, then, well, that leads us into this next movie. First movie of the Terminated timeline, which will basically be the Phase 4 thing. So, Phase 3 will end the Plague timeline, and Phase 4 will begin the Terminated timeline. Similar to Plague, taking place in the 2030s, this time in a new timeline, so without zombies to interfere, mankind, they made a bunch of advancements in technology. So, RoboCop. Now, people might consider RoboCop and Terminator to be more action than horror, but like I said, if it has horror elements, fair game, my dude. Now, I've thought about this also for a while, but possibly Jurassic Park may also, and Alien 2 may also be part of the Terminated timeline. Probably not Alien 2, though, actually, because that would have already happened. So, Jurassic Park, even though there's no plot details for that, it'll also be in the Terminated timeline. but RoboCop will be the first movie in the Terminator timeline. So, hope you enjoyed this look into the next couple movies, the next couple phases in the Danimation fanverse. Can't wait for you to see them. Hope you enjoy. Danimation out.